Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ, where the NFL opened up its 2-day legal tampering window. And I don't even know if we need 2 full days, because it only took a couple of hours for teams and players to get together and get deals going. Teams and players switching sides. Earlier today, Pete Prisco had like a few openings, Jenny. It's now just down to 1.
It's now just down to 1. Devon Holland, we're just waiting to see where he ends up, what that money looks like. Some of the biggest ones to circle here: Sam Darnold to the Seahawks, Justin Fields also going to the Jets. We're still waiting on what happens with Aaron Rodgers. The Commanders making a huge splash, getting Laramie Tunsil. And that's just the beginning of it all, because it's been a wild day here in the world of football. We're going to bring in our Danny Cannell and our Bryant McFadden to break down what's occurred.
Top 5 that they had from today, because they've had a little bit of time to get these deals going and kind of put together a list of their top 5 deals, I would think.
Okay, so we're going to start with number 1. And Danny, we're going to hand this over to you. Number 1, what is the best deal that went down today when it comes to free agency?
I'm excited. I mean, hey, I might be biased, having played the market, but the New York Jets bringing in Justin Fields, that was number 1 for me. You got a 26-year-old quarterback to come replace one that's up at the back end of his career, so it's a completely different direction. You reunite him with his former college teammate and Garrett Wilson on the outside. You bring a more mobile quarterback. We saw the offensive line. We were very well aware of those issues trying to protect Aaron Rodgers, so you get a more mobile quarterback. 26 years old, 55 touchdowns accounted for, only 21 interceptions. I think basically you're getting a 2-year window at a pretty good deal. I know it sounds like a lot of money, because it is, but in the bigger scope, in the bigger picture, it's not that much to get a 2-year look at somebody who could potentially be a franchise quarterback for you. So I love that move for the Jets, bringing in Justin Fields.
I love the move, not for the Jets. I was biasly hoping the Pittsburgh Steelers could retain Justin Fields, but clearly the market was very, very extensive in terms of teams wanting his services. But it makes a lot of sense to your point, Danny. The Jets clearly were in dire need of a quarterback, a guy that can become a playmaker in their offense. And that is Justin Fields. When you look at the athleticism, I'm talking about in a 6-game window, he was able to parlay that into a $30 million deal, basically a 1-year deal. And he is deserving of seeing this because of the upside. You talked about being 26 years old, the potential is still there. So now he walks into an organization, Danny, where there's no looking over his shoulder, no quarterback competition. He is the guy, and he can carry himself as such day one for the New York Jets.
So, B-Mac, why was Sam Darnold your number 1 move?
Sam Darnold has been the most talked about quarterback throughout this free agency period as we got ready for free agency. When you look at what he did a year ago, exceeding the expectations, surprising everyone, becoming the starter for the Minnesota Vikings, being able to win 14 games, and as an individual played fairly well. And then when you look at what happened today with Seattle in dire need of a quarterback, they went out and gave him a 3-year deal, over $100 million. If we asked this question 2 or 3 years ago, do you see Sam Darnold ever hitting a triple-digit plateau in terms of an overall contract? We all would have said, no way, no how. But guess what? It happened today because of how he played for the Minnesota Vikings. He was the most coveted quarterback amongst the free agents, and they paid him as such.
And they got to see him firsthand when the Vikings beat the Seahawks in the Pacific Northwest. And again, Sam Darnold gets a new team and a new deal. Again, we're going through.
Up for an adventure?
Always.
What is this place? You made it. What's up, cuz?
You were the last to see the president alive.
Welcome to the pit.
Light him up now!
A crew of pirates is coming.
That was cool.
The Disney Plus Hulu Max bundle. Plans starting at $16.99 a month.
Saving money feels right. Just like when things are packed tidy and tight. Get auto insurance that fits your budget and your needs. Save up to 10% when you bundle auto and renter's insurance. Get a quote today.
each of your top fives. And almost like fantasy football order, we're going to reverse snake it. So that means for number 2, B-Mac, you're going to go first, and then Danny's going to follow with his number 2. B-Mac, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to go with the New England Patriots. They made a slew of moves today because of the money they had available. And it starts with Milton Williams, the most coveted interior defensive lineman amongst all the free agents, had a heck of a year for the Super Bowl winning champions, Philadelphia Eagles. They went out and gave Milton $26 million per year. Deserving when you look at what he did, and also talking about the potential, because if you're the New England Patriots, you look at your division, you're chasing the Buffalo Bills, you're chasing the Miami Dolphins, you're chasing quarterbacks that have high-powered players surrounding them. So you got to go find guys that can hunt those said quarterbacks. And Milton Williams is one of those guys in terms of being a do-it-all defensive lineman, not just in run pro, but also putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. This was a big-time need for the New England Patriots. And you look at the monster that they're building there on the defensive front, starting with Milton Williams. Clearly, they're trying to let everyone know we're going to try to win the battle in the trenches, and it starts with Milton Williams.
B-Mac, I love it. And I think both of our number 2 spots show you why it's so hard to repeat as Super Bowl champions, because I'm going with another Philadelphia Eagle who is leaving to go to the Arizona Cardinals, and that's Josh Sweat, who reunites. I mean, I think that's one of the reunions we're hearing too, with like guys going with familiarity, the relationships that are built. Josh Sweat going out to Arizona to reunite with Jonathan Gannon, who was the defensive coordinator with the Eagles when Sweat had his most productive seasons back there in 21 and 22. Hasn't dropped off too much, in the production category, maybe a little bit statistic category he has, but now he's going back to a place at Arizona where their defense probably was a little bit quiet under the radar, but with a defensive-minded coach and Coach Gannon, I think this is a great fit. I think he should flourish out there, and he's getting paid pretty handsomely too at that pretty nice number with Myles Garrett resetting that market. It's a pretty good number for him. So that was my number 2 signing for me.
All right, we're going to bring it back to you, Danny. And as we mentioned, snaking it around, so it's going back to you. You like your number 3 move was B-Mac's number 1, correct?
Yes, I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. The reason why it's not higher for me, I think this makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, again, another reunion, Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator, somebody that Sam Darnold was with the 49ers back in 23. A little bit cautious on this one because of the lack of weapons around him. No more Tyler Lockett, losing your other key piece on the outside, and DJ, moving on as well. So, and the offensive line has question marks as well. So I'm a little bit concerned. One, the team that he's going to, the supporting cast that Sam Darnold's going to with the Seahawks. And then 2, the Sam Darnold that we saw last year, was that an anomaly, the MVP form, or was it we've seen throughout the majority of his career? That's the question that I don't know, and it's going to be even tougher for him to do it out in Seattle with a roster that's not as talented as what he had in Minnesota. I do like it. They get basically another version of Geno Smith, except younger. It's not too outrageous of a contract. So from that standpoint, it makes sense. But I'll be watching it closely. But I'm just curious what the supporting cast looks like for him.
Well, when you look at Sam Darnold, I'm right there with you. He walks into a situation that's the opposite of what he had in Minnesota. No Justin Jefferson, no Jordan Addison. So clearly the playmakers, the lack thereof, is something that will put more pressure on Sam Darnold. But he's getting paid to handle all of that pressure. When you talk about $110 million for 3 years, I think he's going to be okay in finding a way to orchestrate success with the lack of players surrounding him outside of Jackson Smith-Njigba.
And then B-Mac, you're going to go Carlton Davis to the Patriots. Was that your number 3 move?
No question. And I think for me, it's about the team he's going to. Right, I talked about the New England Patriots having the most money in terms of cap space out of every team in the National Football League. They've done a real good job in spending the money wisely. Milton Williams was the first big-time signing on the defensive front. Now you go get the most coveted corner that was available in free agency in Carlton Davis. Now you're able to show up the back end and get this. You pair him up with Gonzo, Christian Gonzalez, a guy who is a lockdown corner on the opposite side. So you now have 2 number 1 options at the cornerback position. This is why I love this move for the New England Patriots, because they needed to improve the defense. So that they started in the trenches, and then they worked their way to the 3rd level, which is a secondary. And if you're Carlton Davis, now you're telling any offense that you face, it's not about me. You also have to monitor and pay attention to my opposite cornerback in Christian Gonzalez. So if you look at what they've done, quiet as kept, they're really building a very, very impressive defensively on the personnel side. And I can't wait to see what else they have in store the rest of the way throughout free agency.
All right, let's get to number 4 on your guys' list. That means we flip back to BMAC. And you had hinted a little bit when Danny went, Justin Fields number 1. He's your number 4. I don't know if that's because you feel maybe a little snake bitten as a Steelers guy, BMAC here, but how would you also describe the Justin Fields experiment in Pittsburgh?
Well, for Justin Fields, it was overly successful. And the same can be said for the Pittsburgh Steelers as well, because in that 6-game stretch, he kept them afloat. They were 4-2 in that 6-game stretch. So because of the momentum he handed the baton off to with Russell, they were able to weather that into a playoff caliber year. And then for Justin, in 6 games, Danny, he's receiving $30 million. I'm willing to bet, Danny Cannell, you would sign up for a 6-game stretch to get $30 million. That's what Justin Fields did. So everything worked out wonderfully for the player in Justin Fields, and the same can be said for the Pittsburgh Steelers because they were able to get into the playoffs.
No doubt about it. I definitely would have signed up for that deal. My number 4 is the Washington Commanders making a move, not in free agency, but trading for Laramie Tunsil from the Houston Texans, a 5-time Pro Bowler who's one of the better, tackles in the league. He's only 30 years old. And my thinking on this one was a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, we were talking about what the Commanders should do this offseason. And my take was they need to go all in around Jaden Daniels with cap space to spend, with draft capital to use, and they do just that to make sure that Jaden Daniels is protected and that he's got an offensive line that's solidified up front to add potentially the run game as well. I love this move. They didn't have to give up too much, maybe got a little bit expensive, but you've already got one of the better, more experienced Pro Bowl left tackles on the market. I love this move, going all in for the Commanders. You've got Jaden Daniels on his rookie deal. You might as well try to make it happen sooner rather than later.
RP Prisco said, great move for the Commanders. I don't know what the Texans are doing when it comes to that. All right, number 5. We've dwindled our way down to our last topic of the day. BMAC, we're going to start with you. What's your 5th move of the day?
Chris Godwin deciding to stay in the Sunshine State with the Buccaneers. I'm hearing he turned down an extra $20 million from the New England Patriots just to stay with the Buccaneers. So it shows his loyalty. And also he understands they have something special going on right now in Tampa Bay. This is huge for the organization as well, because before getting injured, Chris Godwin was having an outstanding all-pro-like season. So now you bring Chris Godwin back with Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, McMillan at the 3rd wide receiver option, Cade Otton at the tight end. You talk about a slew of pass catchers that can do damage any given Sunday. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm loving what they have offensively, not to mention with the running back in Bucky Irvin. I mean, this was a talented offense a year ago, even with all the injuries they were dealing with. But now you get everyone back in the saddle once again, highly motivated, and most importantly, healthy, starting with Chris Godwin. This was my 5th best move out throughout everything that has transpired today because of the individual in terms of what he received. And when you look at the compensation and making this offense once again a high-powered like offense when you add a guy like Chris Godwin back into the mix.
So my number 5 move, going back to another similar theme, protecting young quarterbacks. Drew Dahlman, the former Falcons center, going to Chicago to shore up that offensive line, which is already a work in progress. Making the move for Joe Thuney. They're trying to shore up things up front for Caleb Williams, reshuffling this thing across the board, making 3 new positions across the interior, which is so important when any quarterback wants to step up. And I think last year, all of us, myself included, got so enamored with some of the supporting cast that was on the exterior, the skill positions. We forgot that the most important thing for a young quarterback is good protection and good run game. And that's one thing Ben Johnson, I think, realized talking to Ryan Poles was like, hey, we've got to give our young quarterback a support system where he can excel and there's not so much pressure on his shoulders. So I think this is a really smart, astute move for the Bears to give Caleb Williams some support up front so he can take some of that pressure off of his shoulders.
Danny Cannell, B-Mac, you guys are the best. It's been a busy day in the NFL. It's nice to have a nice breakdown of some of the top moves that went down today. Looking at Danny's list right now, we kick it off with Justin Fields going to the Jets, then going over to Josh Sweat, headed to the Cardinals for a 4-year, $76.4 million deal. Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. Then we got Laramie Tunsil going to the Commanders. And last but not least, Drew Dahlman shoring up that O-line for the Bears.
So there were a couple of similarities with B-Mac's
The QBs.
list. The QBs. They flipped them, though.
Yep.
And some had Fields 4 instead of Danny having a 1, Darnold in reverse order. But B-Mac did like the Chris Godwin re-signing with the Bucs, running it back with Baker and Mike Evans.